This was me as a kid. Now, just so we're clear, that's not the actual picture of me as a kid. I use that to represent because the alternative doesn't really work so well for the story. Now, I'll accept responsibility for the calculator watch and the Apple II Plus, and even the giant trucker hat and the orange shorts, but the wallpaper was not my idea. So if you guys don't mind, I think we're going to stick with the original one. So I was probably around 6 or 7 years old the first time that I remember thinking that I was going to do something extraordinary with my life. I was going to change the world. Now, it's probably that same feeling that we all had as kids, you know, the one that has us dreaming about being a superhero or an astronaut instead of an accountant or a lawyer. But for me, it never left. I always carried it with me right here. And I went out into the world and I did some extraordinary things. You know, I performed on Broadway. I recorded with Grammy Award-winning musicians. I wrote books. I even started my own marketing firm. It was a resume that any mother would be very proud of, and yet for me, from my perspective, I had failed. I was a colossal failure because I couldn't point to one thing that had made a difference in somebody's life. Because for me, the idea of changing the world meant you had to do something like walk across the country in lieu of a cause, or maybe build a school in a third world country. Maybe it's running into a building to save somebody you don't know, or even climbing a tree to rescue a cat. And so armed with this, I saw life through this lens called I don't matter. I could die right now, and with the exception of a few people close to me in my life, the world would continue to spin as if I would never existed. So I did what any rational person would do. I ran away. I picked up and I moved my entire family from New Jersey to Florida. And at the time, I was writing a really, really unsuccessful blog. It was about search engine optimization, which is bound to change the world. And I had two readers total, and I was both of them. But once I got to Florida, I started to change my voice, and I started to write about this thing that I couldn't seem to get rid of, this thing that was buried inside, this need to matter. And all of a sudden, I was getting 1,000 visitors to my blog on a daily basis with huge spikes in between. And about a year and a half into this, I got an email from somebody. And in that email was a picture of what looked like a car that was buried in snow, and it had my name written on the outside. And so I had no idea what it was, and I started reading about it, and it was this guy that had been inspired by something that I wrote, and he quit his job, and he moved his family into the mountains, where he decided to dedicate the next couple of years of his life documenting these melting glaciers. And so in his letter, he told me all about his story. And what he had written was, what you are doing does matter, at least to me. What you wrote almost a year and a half ago still rings in my head and encourages me to keep going. And he told me all about his project and what his family was going through and what he had done. And he ended his letter with, I hope this helps you know that you are changing the world, even if it is only one little seed of wisdom at a time in lots of people's lives. And that picture that was included in his email was not a car covered in snow. It was a little piece of the glacier. And he had written my name on it to document the role that I had played in this life-altering event that he had taken on. And it was in that moment that I realized that you don't have to walk across the country, and you don't have to build a school. You don't have to run into a fiery building or even save a cat from a tree in order to make a difference, in order to change the world. All it takes is doing one thing that matters. You know, one thing that matters for your family, doing one thing that matters for your community, doing one thing that matters for the world, or one thing that matters for the internet. And that one thing could be anything. Hug a stranger. Hold someone's hand for the last time as they take their last breath. Write a book. Deliver meals. Teach someone who can't read. Run a 5K for someone who can't. Or write a blog post that means something to somebody. Because that's how you change the world. If all we do is move one grain of sand, the earth will never be the same. Thank you.